It was not Buffy slash Angel, unfortunately. I would have killed for some Buffy Angel slash. Hey nerds, it's Michaela back again with another video. It is time for the May 2021 wrap up. I actually did not plan to not post any videos between my April wrap up and my May wrap up. I was hopeful that I was going to get something else out, but ever since I have started working back at the office again after, you know, our quarantine was over, I have just been incredibly busy, and it's been very hard for me to do anything video related because my free time has been dramatically cut down. But it does mean that my reading time has dramatically gone up because I have a lot of time to read at my desk. I managed to read 17 books this month. That is what I'm going to be talking about now. I actually read a lot of good books in May. There were a lot of books that I really enjoyed and really found myself having a hard time putting down. In particular, I felt that the comic books that I read in May were very good, but of course I will talk about those very briefly at the end. So yeah, you're about to watch me throughout my month talking about my books that I have just finished reading, and then we will come back for the outro. Good morning. It is May 6th or something, I don't know. Yesterday I finished my first book of May, which is The Captives by Debra Immergut. You may know that I had a series on my channel last year. That series was called One Book Books. It is where I bought a book for $1 and then I read it and reviewed it and then talked about it. That is a series I decided to nix because it just wasn't getting a lot of views. People didn't seem to be interested, which is totally fine. So now I'm just going to be talking about those books, which I'm still buying because buying books for $1 is still excellent. So that is what this is. This is a book that I picked up at the Dollar Tree and I read it and I liked it. So it is going to be hard for me to talk about this book without spoiling it because it is extremely spoilerable. Basically, this book is told from two different perspectives. The chapters flip back and forth. The first is Frank Lundquist, who is a psychologist, therapist. He is going through a lot in his life. He's recently been divorced. He's recently suffered a great career loss, and he's relatively new to working as a therapist in a women's prison in New York. The other chapter is one of the women in this prison. Her name is Miranda Green. And what Miranda does not know for quite a while in this book is that she and Frank went to high school together and he remembers her very well. And that's kind of all I can say because, like I said, it is very spoilerable. I will talk about, though, just what my experience was like reading this. I thought this book was going to be a solid 3 for a very long time. I think that the writing is very good. I very much enjoyed the language of the thing, right? I think that each of the two voices that we got were distinct, and I was never ever confused about who we were following in any given chapter. Granted, it was hard to get confused when one person was in prison and one person could leave the prison, but I enjoyed both of their voices. The pacing of this was very slow, but it did not bother me. The plot, so to speak, of this book doesn't start until about halfway through, and it doesn't really get going until pretty close to the end. And normally that is something that would really piss me off, but something about this book, maybe it's because it was so short, it was only 273 pages, something about it, I wasn't stressed about it. I kind of knew somehow as I was reading it, this is going somewhere, I just have to let it get there. And I'm really glad that I did let it get somewhere because the ending was truly very great, and I didn't predict it. It wasn't something that I saw coming. I knew we were going to get somewhere very different from where we started, but I didn't necessarily know how, and I didn't necessarily know where that was going to be. One thing, like I said, I thought it was going to be 3 for a long time, and the reason was Frank Lundquist is a terrible therapist. He's so bad at it, and I won't go into reasons why. There are many, but he's incredibly bad at being a therapist. He's incredibly unethical, and I thought, or not even thought, I was worried that this book was going to encourage the behavior or romanticize the behavior. And I will just say that it does not. I feel that there is a satisfactory ending to Frank's bullshit. And again, that is all I'm going to say on the matter. So if you are reading this and you are finding yourself wanting to punch Frank Lundquist in the face, just sit in that feeling and don't worry about it. Oh, to go back to the language piece, I forgot to mention, I low-key wonder if Deborah Jo Immergut has aphantasia, because I did notice that this book was not description heavy, and I very much appreciated it. It just kind of like got in and got right to the point. People were described in like just a couple of words, and I very much enjoyed this. I am someone who does not really enjoy descriptions. I like descriptions of places, okay, but descriptions of people, to me, waste of words, waste of time. And I found that this book was like very economical when it comes to descriptions of things, and it really made me wonder if the author has aphantasia, because as someone with aphantasia, I was like, this is exactly how I would write this. No one would be described. Everyone is anonymous. So I enjoyed that. I feel bad not being able to say more, but the plot is pretty spoilerable. I guess it's about these two coming together to get to know each other more, and then how each of them, who have very separate agendas, how those agendas come together and then come into conflict. And that's really as much as I can say. I very much enjoyed it. I classify this as a thriller. It's not like a high tension thriller, it's kind of like a low tension thriller. The thriller part, again, doesn't really kick in till the end. But I personally did not mind the slower, more like introspective work that was like the first kind of 2/3 of this novel. I enjoyed it. Someone else might not, but I'm also a very impatient person. I want us to get to the point much faster, and this didn't, and it didn't bother me. So just like keep that in mind. I rated this 4 stars. So I paid $1 for it. The retail price of this is $27, hardcover. Do I think that is worth it? No, simply because it is too short. This is the hardcover version. It is only 273 pages, $27. It's like 10 cents a page. I can't co-sign that. It was good. I enjoyed it, but $27 is a lot of money for something that you could feasibly read in, like, depending on how fast you read, a couple of hours. I just don't think that's a good price. Now, I don't know what the paperback might be. If the paperback is somewhere in like the upper teens, I can actually get on board with that. I think that whatever the paperback version costs, it's probably a good price, knowing just like how much paperbacks typically cost. Of course, I got this $1 at the Dollar Tree, so if this sounds interesting to you, I do recommend it. Check out your local Dollar Tree or check out their website. They might have it for $1. But yeah, good book. Kind of just like a very interesting introspective ride, and then like a really wild roller coaster right at the end. Yeah, so check it out. Hello. So I've had a very busy month. It is start of the summer term at the university that I work for, so my job is very hectic. I also got my second vaccine shot, which you can't see. I don't know why I thought I would show you. But I got my second vaccine shot, and that knocked me out for a little while. So I am just now finishing my second book, which is The Martian by Andy Weir. I have never read this book. I never watched the movie. I heard that both were very good, but I don't know, not really into space stories. It's not really where I live, not really my interest. I like them fine, but like I'm not going to really seek them out. But a couple years ago, my best friend was doing like a clean out of her bedroom. More accurately, I was forcing her to do a clean out of her bedroom, because that is what friendship with me means. It just means I come in and organize your shit. But she had read this and she didn't want it anymore, so I took it, and now I'm finally reading it. Or rather, I have read it and I liked it. I was actually kind of surprised by how much I liked it, because like I said, I'm not really like overly enthusiastic about space stories, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was like really appropriately paced. I thought that Andy Weir did a fantastic job of like balancing the tension, of like giving us highs, of like getting to feel like the success of all of the things that Mark Watney was doing on the planet. Wait, I should probably start with a summary. I mean, I feel like most people know at least the bare bones plot of The Martian, which is a man is trapped on Mars. But like that's literally it. Like he is part of a Mars exploration team. He's like the 4th team that's gone to Mars, and while he is there, things go wrong, and so his team has to suddenly evac, and he gets left behind. And so it's about his survival on Mars, and then on Earth, like NASA and JPL and everyone trying to get him back home. I mean, there's not really much to the plot beyond that. It's literally just like what everybody's doing. And like I said, very well paced. I really enjoyed how we got to like feel like a period of success where like everything is going well and like things he's doing are working out, and like, oh, there might have been like a minor setback, but it's not that big of a deal, we're gonna work it out. And then like the worst thing would happen, and that like high-low roller coaster really worked for me. It really kept me on my toes. It kept the tension up the entire time. I thought that was great. There is a lot of like technical science writing in here, lots of math like on the page. I didn't mind it because at the points when I was reading, when I was like really into it and I wanted to know all that, I found it pretty easy to follow. And at the times when I kind of wasn't in the mood, I could like, you know, just my eyes skim over it and I wasn't really missing much. So I wouldn't be necessarily scared of it if you don't really like reading about math or science. Like I've read more complicated science books than this, but it is a good hunk of the book is very smart people talking about like science and math and like you need to do this to convert this into this so you can use it for this. It's a lot of like really nuts and bolts stuff. I personally liked it, or like I would say I liked most of it. Sometimes it got a little boring, but like whatever. My biggest complaint about this book is actually the formatting. So Mark Watney, the guy on Mars, he basically communicates like his point of view portions of this book are told almost entirely through written daily logs. At one point it does switch over to audio logs for a plot reason, but then it goes back to written logs. And my biggest problem was that it was a formatting choice that was not reflected in the text. Every one of these sections is like labeled with the soul or the day, because days are for Earth and souls are for apparently other planets, I don't know. But for every soul that he was there, you know, it was what he did that day. But it didn't read to me like a scientist keeping a log. It read to me like a guy telling a story, and it just did not feel realistic. It really kind of took me out of it. I was like, people don't write like this. I thought Mark's voice was great. Like I really enjoyed his voice. I enjoyed the way that he spoke and the way that he talked. I thought he had a good sense of humor. It's not that I didn't like Mark's voice. There was nothing in it to me that suggested this was actually a written log. Like a couple of times he references like, hey, if I die on Mars, like these written logs are going to be like the only thing they have to like know what I did here, because for a while he does not have communication with Earth. And while that is acknowledged, nothing about the way he was writing suggested that that was the case. To me, I mean, I guess maybe this is just writing style, but like if I were telling the story, I would have it be like very sort of clinical writing at first, like I am a scientist, I am here to do a job, and like that's how it starts, and then it sort of deteriorates over time as he's like, you know what, fuck this shit, I'm stuck on another planet. I don't know. I wish I could describe better. The audio logs as well. The audio logs absolutely 100% did not feel like a person was talking. It felt like a person was writing. Like nobody talks like the way he was talking in his audio logs. And it annoyed me because I was like, you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to add the formatting of, or like the structure of logs. You didn't have to do that. You could have just had this all be told from his point of view, like first person, and that would have been fine. But if you're going to put that type of constraint, you have to use the constraint, and I just don't think it was used properly. That being said, I did think the writing was good. I just didn't like the fact that it was supposed to be logs when it very clearly wasn't. The ending was also a little abrupt. I could have used a little bit more. I mean, I won't spoil it for you, but like the book kind of just ends. It ends at a point, and I could have used like even just like another 30 pages, like not anything drastic, just like a little bit more. And like this is already a long book that, you know, I have obviously the movie tie-in paperback from Target, 15% off. Not that I paid for it. Again, took it from a friend. This is already 435 pages. So it's not like I wanted some long wind down or anything. I just wanted like a smidgen more to like tie things up. There were characters that like the last time we heard from them should not have been the last time that we heard from them. Like they deserve like a little bit more. I really enjoyed the vast array of characters we got in this. A lot of backgrounds, a lot of roles that they're playing like in each other's lives in these various agencies and countries that are coming together to try and get this guy off of Mars. I like that you spent the first hunk of this book just with Mark Watney, like nobody else. And it's a while before we finally like go back to Earth and be like, so what's Earth up to? I liked that. I thought that was cool, but I liked the bouncing back and forth. Eventually we also get not only what's going on Mars, what's going on Earth, but we also get what's going on with his crew, who is still in space and who at first think he is dead. I liked that. I liked all of these various perspectives. I thought they were done very, very well. Not ever a problem switching between these points of view. I mean, Mark, I believe, was the only person who ever was in the first person point of view. Everyone else was third person, but I still really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed that like sort of the core theme, the core message of this is that like when humans decide to come together to do something extraordinary, they can. It was very hopeful. A little bit frustrating about like how much money was being spent to like save this one guy, and I'm like, but what if we invested that money in like homeless infrastructure and like lead pipes? Like I get it as fiction, I get that it's fiction, but part of me is just like, is this what this money is meant for? It's fine. It was still very uplifting. It was still a good story. Well told, great characters, super well paced. I can't stress enough, like this is one of the best paced books I think I've ever read. Could not, like, rode the highs right up and then crashed right down. It was great. It was so great. Yeah, so I give this 4 stars. I would definitely recommend it if you particularly like sci-fi. Although if you like sci-fi, you've probably already read this because it's like, this was an extraordinarily popular book. But it's definitely inspired me to watch a movie. I think I will. Okay, so I just finished my next book, which is Talent by Juliet Lapidos. This is another book that I got from the Dollar Tree. This is kind of a hard book to summarize. It is about this PhD candidate named, I already forgot her name, Jesus Christ, Anna Brisker, who goes to this liberal arts college in some vague New England space, and very prestigious program, and she was always one of those like most likely to succeed, like very promising young student type, and ever since entering her PhD program, she's just really sort of fizzled out. She is in her 7th year of her doctoral program, and she's not really any closer to finishing her dissertation, and she just doesn't really know what to do. Her dissertation topic is on inspiration as a concept, and so she is sort of like looking for inspiration for her inspiration, and she ends up running into Helen Langley, who is the niece of a short story writer who Anna read when she was younger, who was sort of like a young rising star, like extremely successful, very like prolific writer who just kind of like dipped one day and just like disappeared after the publication of like his 3rd collection. So Anna's taking this opportunity to figure out like what happened to him. Like he was so young and so successful, and then he just stopped writing. She ends up sort of forging this friendship with this niece, and they start looking into his life, and more specifically a pair of notebooks that he left behind when he died, because he died kind of suddenly. These pair of notebooks that show that he was starting to write again, which is also what Anna's looking into. She's looking into like, why did he lose the inspiration, and then how did he gain that back to start writing again? The issue is that there both is and is not a plot. In the most traditional sense of the word, this book, which is only 240 pages long, does not start until around page 180, so right at the end. But then in other cases, you could say like it's not really about a plot, it is more of like just a character story. I don't know how successfully it does either of those things. This book can't really decide if it wants to be a novel or if it wants to just sort of be a treatise on academia and intellectual writing and reading and writing for pleasure versus writing for profit, because this book has a lot of very interesting things to say on those topics. And although the language was very often pretentious in a way that honestly fit like the setting of the story, it's a liberal arts college in New England, a doctoral candidate, like the pretension of the writing didn't bother me. There were points I even liked it, and then there were points that I'm like, can you please just like shut up for 5 minutes? But despite the writing, I thought a lot of the things, like I said, that this writer had to say were pretty interesting. Why is it that we value the opinions of academics so highly on various pieces of writing, and why is the entire concept of like an academic English career even a thing? Like, you're making money off of writing about other people's writing? Like, that's kind of weird. Just interesting things to think about. I don't think this book really tries to make any definitive claims or positions, and I think that's fine. I don't think it has to. I just noticed like for me they were sparking like sort of internal thoughts, but then like all those interesting conversations like kind of got in the way of telling a good story, because I kept waiting for like things to happen, and like I said, things did not start happening until about page 180. And then the action, plot, what have you, that we do get is pretty lackluster. It doesn't have a really satisfying beginning, middle, or end. In fact, the ending is really ambiguous, and I don't mind it. My issue with the ending is not the fact that you don't really know what happens, it's more the fact that the book just ends. The main character of Anna, I don't particularly like her, but I don't particularly think you're supposed to. She does remind me a lot of me. So the fact that I don't like her, like I said, she reminds me a lot of me. She's very, you know, was once hailed as like most likely to succeed, and everyone had like such high hopes, and like now she's not doing anything, which like is me. I'm not doing fucking anything with my life. And you know, it's hard, and at the same time it's also hard to care. You know, she questions a lot about her path in life in this, like what does it mean to have a career, why is that necessary, why is she like valuing the opinions of other people when it comes to the choices she makes about her own life. She's also like extremely spoiled and privileged, which only very lightly comes out. Like she's living in like the most expensive building in town. She's living, I don't know, I can't remember what money she's living off of, but she's living off of family money. At the end of the book, for reasons, she has to contact her banker and start asking how much she can live on like just what is currently available. And so he like basically lays it out for her, like if you want to live on this much, it can take you this far. If you want to live on this much, it'll take you this far. And she talks about like not being able to live on $60,000 a year, and I'm like, sweetie, I live on half that, so go fuck yourself. I guess my ultimate takeaway from this book was that like, as far as a story goes, and even really as far as a character study goes, I don't think it really works. I just think the conversations that it has about academia and writing and intellectual pursuits, I think those conversations are interesting. I just don't think that the conversations really suited the story or the characters, or that the story or characters really suited the conversation. One of them felt like a vehicle for the other, and I don't really know which is which. I would much rather have Juliet Lapidos, like, I don't know, had written an interesting, like, article in the Atlantic about these very same topics. It didn't have to be 240 pages. It didn't have to be hardcover. You know, it could have been a long boy for sure. Like, they were, you know, lengthy, interesting topics in here. I just don't think they had to be told in a story, because the story as a narrative wasn't that great. It was fine. I certainly did not hate it. There were even times that I was like genuinely enjoying myself. And for a while I actually went back and forth on how I wanted to rate this. I thought for a long time it was going to be 3, and then for a while like I was like, oh, actually this is kind of picking up. I think it might be a 4. But then at the end, when I had to like really think about it, I was like, interesting writing and interesting conversation is not enough to carry a novel, and this is first and foremost a novel, and I think it kind of ultimately fails on that front. So that is why ultimately I gave this book a 3. Like I said, I got this for $1 at the Dollar Tree. The retail price of this hardcover book is $27. Absolutely hard no. This is not, it's way too short. This is only 240 pages. That's over 10 cents a page, and it's simply not good enough. It is not a almost $30 experience. This could have probably been much more successful as like an article. I would definitely not recommend this for $27. I don't know what the paperback price is, but I probably wouldn't recommend it for the paperback price either, to be honest. I would recommend it for $1. Like, it was a fine read. It's a very, very quick read, even though the language can be pretty pretentious and like lofty. I didn't find it that hard to read. So it's a quick read. So if you want to spend $1 on a quick read, that's fine. But would I recommend this? Not if you're paying retail price for it. Alright, so it is the next day, and this morning I read Kiss number 8 by Colleen A.F. Venable and Ellen T. Crenshaw. I said I read it this morning because it took me about an hour to read. This is a YA graphic novel, and it is about a young girl named Mads. I believe this took place in 2004. She's 17 years old, and she, you know, is from a Catholic family, goes to Catholic school, has 2 best friends, one of whom is like very much like good Catholic girl, and one of which is very much bad Catholic girl who like goes out and parties and stuff. She's super close to her friends, super close to her dad, not very close to her mom. The story sort of begins with her realizing that her dad has a secret. There's someone that her dad is keeping from her. That's kind of all I want to say about it, because this is a very spoilable book. This is not my first time reading Kiss number 8, I should say. I first read this book in 2019, and I really loved it then, really love it now. This is a very LGBTQ+ heavy book, multiple related plot lines, multiple queer and trans characters. Ultimately, this is a book about self-discovery, about family, about accepting other people as they are, even as you're working to accept yourself as you are. The plot is not overly complicated. Like I said, I read it in an hour, which of course graphic novels already read pretty quickly because there's more picture than there is words, but it's not a super complicated plot. It's not a plot that is going to like whip you around and spin you in circles. Like it's well paced and it's well told, but it's a story about its characters. Like, oh, sorry if you can hear my dishwasher in the background being very, very loud. It is a story that is about its characters, and it's about the people And I think it's a very lovely little story about people messing up and hurting each other on purpose, and hurting each other by mistake, and having to apologize and forgive and come together. And it's really about just like how messy being a person is, and I really love that. The art is pretty lovely. I will show you like a page from like very early on. This is page 9, so it's not spoilers, but like this is just like what it looks like. It is all in black and white. I think this would make a really lovely like 90-minute movie if someone wanted to do that. I mean, it is not PG. This is a PG-13 story, like if that's what the scale we were using. But I would love to see this adapted into something animated. I think it would be a really good little film. But yeah, I don't really have a lot to say. If you're looking for a good, complicated, like human story, again, complicated humans, not the story itself is not terribly complicated, but if you're looking for a good story about complicated queer humans, I would definitely recommend this. This doesn't take that long to read. It's a good time. I gave it 5 stars. Hi, I am at work. I'm on a break. But I finished reading today The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, which was a truly remarkable and really special book, one that is gonna stay with me for a very, very long time. But I have a dedicated review for that up on my channel now. I will link it in the corner. It's a review that is not like a review I have ever done before, so check that one out because I'm kind of proud of it. Oh, and I gave the book 5 stars. Hello! So I actually have a double update for you right now because I finished 2 books today. The first, I read the bulk of it yesterday and just finished a little bit this morning, and then the second one I read entirely today. This is my job. So because time is fake and my memory a myth, I don't remember when I read them. I think it was March. I will find out and I will link it. But not too long ago, I read a trilogy of Buffy / Angel. No, it was not Buffy / Angel, unfortunately. I would have killed for some Buffy Angel / It was a Buffy Angel crossover novel trilogy, and I got 2 of those 3 books at the Goodwill, and then I ended up having to buy one because I can't pay attention. But I also got this book at Goodwill. This is just Angel, no Buffy, but this is based off of, you know, Angel the series. I looked it up. This is actually like the 6th in a series, I suppose, or at least in like the collection of Angel novels. I did not find at all that I was missing things. Referenced in here are actually events from the trilogy that I read, but like very, very briefly, and it's not that important. I am going to be talking about things that happen on Angel the TV show, so if you do not want spoilers, or if you don't care about this at all because you've never seen Buffy or Angel and you don't plan to, the timestamps below to skip to the next book, that they'll be in the comments. Not the comments, the description. But this basically takes place sometime in season 3 of Angel. This is after they come back from Pylea, so Fred is in this. I love Fred. She's a delight. Fred and Lauren are like absolutely the highlights, not only of like Angel totally, but like also Angel the book. I don't know exactly when it takes place, so it's like post coming back from Pylea, but pre Cordelia and the whole Vision plotline, that Vision thing, that episode. So somewhere in like the first half of season 3. And there's 2 main plots that like of course converge, as like all, you know, seemingly separate plots do. One plot is that Cordelia has a vision of Faith in danger, and it turns out that there is this rich vampire lady who is basically trying to put on a Slayer fest, but like it's just Faith. It's not like formally a Slayer fest, but like it is functionally a Slayer fest, so like a bunch of people are paying to hunt the Slayer for sport. And then the second plot line is there is a different vampire lady who is trying to raise like the father of all vampires, with whom she will mate and create like a new species of uber vamp. And so if she succeeds in doing that, that's not good. But after father of all vampires has been risen, they can kill him, and killing him will kill all living vampires, including Angel. So those are our 2 storylines. They like actually only kind of converge. I didn't really enjoy the way that they converged. It seemed like the writers, Nancy Holder and Jeff Marriott, by the way, the title is Endangered Species. I don't think I said that. It doesn't really matter. It kind of seemed like the writers had like an idea for like 2 separate novels, but couldn't really flesh either of them out enough to warrant their own thing so they just smushed them together, and the smushing didn't really work for me. Both plots individually were like pretty good. I didn't think the Faith one was super duper interesting, only because like we'd already gotten a Slayerfest story from season 3 of Buffy, so like, I didn't really need a Slayerfest story here. I don't think it like added anything new or exciting to the universe. The other one was definitely interesting, and like I felt like made the lore of this universe like much more compelling and interesting. I liked the idea of killing this like father of vampires to wipe out the entire species, sort of like killing an original Killser Sire line on the Vampire Diaries / the originals / legacies. I will say, when compared to the Buffy trilogy, I found the dialogue in this a lot more palatable. I thought that the writers did a much better job of like mapping all these characters' voices correctly, and I think it's because the characters on Angel are a little bit more grown up than the characters on Buffy. All of them are like older, with the exception of Cordelia, who's obviously the same age as all of the Buffy characters that we love and know and love. But I just felt that the dialogue worked. Just like with that trilogy, we are introduced to a bunch of new characters who I'm presuming like are only in this book and will never be seen or heard from again. I liked them. I found them all pretty interesting. One thing that I noticed both in the trilogy and in this one is that these books make a far more valiant attempt at like multiculturalism than the show does. In Angel, the series in particular, it's like pretty unacceptable like how white the show is, given the fact that it takes place in Los Angeles, an incredibly diverse city. The trilogy, to which I keep referencing, that dealt a lot with like Mexican culture and Mexican folklore, and this one is a lot with Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian folklore. Are either of them like totally accurate? I have absolutely no idea. I am not the expert to ask about these things, but it feels very much like they did some research, at least, that like they were attempting to bring like life and color and variety and interest into like an otherwise like fairly white and Eurocentric lore that is Buffy. Overall, like, this wasn't anything really to write home about. I gave this 3 stars. It was fine. Buffy novelizations in general are things that like I would 100% pick up at a Goodwill. I find them very interesting and I would love to read more, but I'm not going to go out of my way to ever like buy them. Certainly not new. I don't even know if you could buy these new anymore. If you are a Buffy fan, I would recommend, like, you don't even necessarily have to find this one. Just like find a Buffy or Angel novelization and like pick it up and like see what it's like. They are not difficult reads. They don't take very long. I mean, they're like thick, but they're just like fun. They're good times. None of them are going to blow your mind. But yeah, like I said, 3 stars. It was fine. This next book I kind of devoured, and I didn't expect to, but even as I was devouring it, I did not know how I felt about it, and it actually took some like thinking at the end to figure out like what rating I was going to give it, because I really wasn't sure. The book is Extraordinary Adventures by Daniel Wallace. This is once again a book that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. I am currently like really trying to just like hack away at my TBR shelf because I'm running out of space on my other shelves, so I need to clear out the TBR shelves to put the books I'm reading on. Wait a minute. Anyway, expect more $1 books in the near future. So this is the story of a man named Edsel, I've already forgotten his, Edsel Bronfman, who just goes by Bronfman. He is a 34-year-old, like, just office job worker who has never really dated or had a relationship or like experienced anything. And he one day wins a contest that he did not remember entering, but he wins a contest basically for a free weekend trip to Destin, Florida, a place which I've been several times. It's a lovely little seaside town. He wins a free weekend trip, like room and board paid, in Destin, and the only catch is that he does have to attend during that weekend a 1-hour presentation on timeshares, because that's what the contest is for, and he also has to bring a companion. He cannot come by himself, and so he has like 70 something days, I don't remember the exact number, to find a companion to bring. Basically, it sort of snowballs from him like having absolutely no romantic prospects or love life or interest or whatever, to like sort of having 3 very quickly. I did see on Goodreads that this was sort of labeled as like a sort of a romantic comedy. I don't think it was very funny. I mean, I guess it was more like situationally funny than like haha funny. This book is basically just about this guy who's, like I said, 34 years old, growing up and like having this like really delayed puberty. There was a very interesting queerness to this story that like, I don't know if I was just picking up on it. I mean, first of all, I was getting like really major asexual vibes from Ed. He is not, I don't know why I called him Ed. He's called Bronfman the entire book. I don't know where Ed came from. He is not labeled as asexual, and I don't know if that was on purpose or if Daniel Wallace just like didn't want to or didn't really know enough to do that, but he has kind of never had sex at 34, and you know, it's something that he's like kind of ashamed about, but like genuinely just like doesn't think about in his day-to-day. Like it doesn't really ever cross his mind unless like people force him to think about it. But this book is basically about like him learning to come out of his shell. He's sort of like forcing himself out of his shell because like he just seemed to need this like external thing, this external pressure of like, you have this number of days to get a companion, otherwise you don't get to go on this free trip. He starts pushing himself out of his comfort zone, and he meets a lot of new people, and he starts opening up to the people already in his life in a new way. And I really enjoyed the people in this story. I think what I liked the most is that like even the people that Bronfman doesn't necessarily like, he's always like really open to like the concept of their humanity. And like in particular, he has his coworker who's 10 years his junior. I don't remember the coworker's name. Nope, I tried and I can't come up with it. But he's like this 24-year-old person who also works in his office, and like he deeply does not like his coworker, just like really can't stand him, but like he has like such grace for him. It's just like, I don't like him, but like whatever, like he's here. Like there's something I can do about it. And I liked that. I liked Bronfman's sort of outlook on the world. I also enjoy the people in his life, how even the ones who were sort of like, you know, urging him to get out of his comfort zone and trying to push him a little, like still had a lot of grace for him, and like understanding that like there's nothing wrong with him for like not having, you know, dated or not having gone on trips or whatever. They want him to experience more without shaming him for like what he's experienced so far. And I like that. I think that it's a good book for characters. I will say that sometimes the descriptions from Bronfman's point of view of like the women in his life were a little, they had like this sort of like, she's so perfect energy, like, or like she's not like other girls energy sometimes, that was a little grating. And that to me did feel more like it was coming from the author than coming from the character, because like it didn't necessarily fit the character sometimes. But the plot is not super complicated. There's lots of like little tiny plot lines that may not necessarily go anywhere particular, but they just sort of serve to flesh out these characters and their lives and their interconnectedness. Yeah, ultimately I came to the conclusion that I did like this. I won't say that it like rocked my world, but it was something that like I wanted to keep reading. Every time I put it down to like do something else, I wanted to get back to it. I ultimately gave this 4 stars. I think I just personally like really connected with Bronfman as a person. I saw a lot of myself in him, the way he looks at the world, looks at his life, looks at his love life, looks at like the people around him. Like I said, I just really saw myself in him. He had a lot of compassion for himself in a way that I found really lovely. So yeah, I gave this 4 stars. The retail price for this is $26. That's a lot. I do not know what the paperback price is for it, but I think I can safely say yes, I do recommend this at the retail paper book price. As for hardcover, I would say that like if you've got $26 to spare, you can do a lot worse in this book. This came out in 2017, so like at this point you can probably find the paperback, so pick it up in the paperback, or maybe you can find it in hardcover at the Dollar Tree, which is where I found it. Definitely worth the $1, definitely worth the paperback price, maybe worth hardcover depending on like how much disposable income you have. All right, and then the last book that I read in May was The 10,000 Doors of January by Alix E. Harlow. This is a book that I was told to read by a friend of mine. She was very insistent, and she was absolutely correct. This book is stunning. I think this is one that like when it came out really took the YA world by storm. When did it come out? I don't even know. Yeah, it's actually 1 year old. It came out in May of 2020. I remember hearing about it a lot. I was not at all surprised when my friend recommended it to me, and I was not at all surprised that I liked it. I don't really know how to describe this. So basically this is a story that takes place in the 1910s, I think. It is about this girl named January Scholar who is being cared for by this extremely wealthy and well-connected man named Mr. Locke. Her father works for Mr. Locke as some sort of like artifact finder. It's basically like in that era of like robber barons sending out people to like pillage other cultures for their cultural artifacts. So that is what her father does for Mr. Locke, and in return Mr. Locke cares for his daughter. January is a very like wild spirit. She loves to explore, she loves to be out in nature, she loves to be, you know, free and wild, like I said, and that does not comport with Mr. Locke's very like upper crust New England style. And as she grows up in this house, she finds herself more and more just cut off and repressing her real nature until her father, she is told that her father is dead. My issue with describing the plot of this book is that it is incredibly complex in a very good way. Like, I did not find it like too hard to follow or anything. It's just like there's a lot of intricacies to the plot. And also, I don't even want to say that it's like necessarily spoilable. I mean, it is, but more it's just like I feel that, like, for me, one of the biggest draws of this book was how the plot developed and how I felt like a participant in seeing the plot unfold before me. And I feel like the only way to describe the plot in a way that makes sense is to tell you everything, and I don't want to do that. But this book involves January setting out on an adventure to discover the truth about herself, about where she comes from, about the nature of the world and other worlds. This is a fantasy book, and it's truly an adventure book. Like, it is an adventure in the most real sense of the word. I think this book deals with issues of like race and class in a particularly like nuanced and deft way. January is not white. She's not like visibly not a white person, and her father is even darker skinned than she is. She doesn't really know what their racial ethnic heritage is. They are presumed to be either Indigenous American or African in descent. Something that she thinks about and talks about a lot in this book is how she understands that the world views her in the early 20th century, but she understands how she is viewed, but she also understands the protections that have been given to her by being the ward of this very wealthy and well-connected and well-respected white man. And those sort of conversations, those ideas of race and class and how they work together, how they work against each other, really pervade this book in a way that brings the world to life. It feels incredibly accurate. It feels incredibly authentic. I don't know Alix E. Harrow. I mean, this is her picture. I mean, she looks like a white person to me, but I don't actually know her. But if she is a white person, I feel a sense of respect for these topics. I don't think she overextends herself and tries to like make a metaphor where one shouldn't be, or tries to like make excuses where excuses are not at all appropriate. You know, describing the way that race or having a darker skin tone affects various characters throughout these books is presented very matter-of-factly, like this is what their experience is, this is how it affects them or how it doesn't affect them, this is how they have learned to deal with it, to cope with it, this is how the people in their life are choosing to respond to it. It feels very matter-of-fact and very not natural in that racism is natural, but like natural as in like this is how all of their lives are going. And I just think it's really well done. The most important thing to talk about, which I probably should have started talking about it before now, is the writing. The prose in this is gorgeous. It's poetry. It's maybe the most poetic and like beautiful writing I've ever encountered. I really love all of her similes and metaphors. I really love this tendency that I saw of comparing inanimate objects to people and vice versa, not in a way that felt dehumanizing or anything like that, but just it's sort of brought to life the sense of magic, the sense of everything is alive, everything is connected, everything is worthy of our attention and respect. And it's so lovely. The language is so lovely. Every single sentence felt like a gift. I truly would say, even if you are not a fantasy fan, particularly YA fantasy, read it for the language alone. Like, read it just to be blown away by these sentences, by these descriptions, by the way that all of these characters are given the space to articulate their thoughts on the world and their place in it, their thoughts on magic and each other, and everything. Every single word is gorgeous. Every single word deserves to be there. A large portion of this book is actually a book within the book. We get to read like 6 chapters, I believe, of this book that has been written by a character in the book. The difference in voice between the sort of like normal chapters that are narrated from the first person perspective of January to like these book chapters, the voices are incredibly different, and yet that same like spirit of beauty and wonder and joy and pain, all of those same like thematic elements and like vocal elements are there, even though the voices are very separate and you can definitely tell them apart. The writing is so good. The writing is so good. I think that's why I put out talking about it for so long, because like I don't know what to say. I didn't like highlight any examples. I don't know. I'm one of those people who like I don't like being told like beautiful language. I like just like experiencing it for myself, so I don't ever highlight it. The passages I find beautiful you might not resonate with, or might not resonate with you, but like, you know, something else might stick out to you. So the language is beautiful, the characters are so great, loved the characters. This was actually one of those rare books where I found myself doling it out in little pieces. Normally when like I really love a book, I can't put it down. And this one, I felt like the urge to put it down. I felt like you just need to take your time, which is interesting now that I think about it, because those 6 chapters that I told you about in this book, January reads them at different points on her journey. She doesn't just like read them straight through. We get a chapter when she reads them and they're sort of spread out. And at first I was like, why are you taking so long to read this book? It's only 6 chapters, just get through it, like read them. But then I realized like that's how I'm reading this book. I felt like the need to plow through it, but like my instinct was actually just to dole it out to myself. And I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad I like let this extend over time, and I got to go on the journey like through time, just like January did. So highly recommend this book. I gave it 5 stars. One of the best books I've read this year, if not the book I've read this year so far. And to finish things off, I read 9 comic book collections this month, and they are New X-Men Omnibus, which I gave 4 stars, Emma Frost Ultimate Collection, Fantastic Four Ultimate Collection Book 1, Fantastic Four Ultimate Collection Book 2, all of which I gave 4 stars. Fantastic Four Ultimate Collection Book 3, I gave that one 5 stars. Fantastic Four Ultimate Collection Book 4, 4 stars. Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4, I only gave that one 2 stars. I did not enjoy that one. Wolverine Origin, which I gave 4 stars, and Exiles Ultimate Collection Book 1, which I also gave 4 stars. I think this was like the best, highest rated month for comics I've ever had. There was only one that I did not like, and all the rest of them I either like really liked or loved. So yeah, that brings my total to 17 books for the month. So that is all I have for you. I have no plans for June because I think I'm going to be even busier in June than I was in May. If you guys have any video ideas, anything you want to see me do, like a book tag, or I could maybe do a bookshelf tour this month. I don't know, my bookshelf is a little like right now, but I can do that. If there's like anything happening in the world of books that you want me to talk about, I actually just signed up for NetGalley, so I might be doing some reviews for NetGalley books. I need to start getting into reading ebooks, which like I'll figure it out, but that might be something that I start doing in June, is reviewing some galleys. So okay, that is all I have for you. I have to go eat. I'm very, very hungry, and I have to go change because I'm very, very sweaty. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye.